And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hello, I'm National Weather Service Meteorologist Peter Chan, and this is your Alaska Aviation Weather Outlook on this Saturday, September 6th, 2025. And as we look at the flight weather coming up here for Sunday into Monday, an area of low pressure will be moving inland across the lower Yukon up into east of Norton Sound, pushing areas of rain and rain showers further inland and up into the western Gulf. This system will be weakening as it heads northeastward, but again, that moisture will be advancing eastward so that by later Sunday we could see some showers trying to push in the northeastern Gulf Coast Panhandle, the ridge of high pressure that has brought such warm and dry weather here for the past week and a half or so is going to finally begin to break down as we go through Sunday and certainly by early next week. And as we get into Sunday afternoon, you see the IFR conditions, Brooks Range, down along the western southwest interior through the lower Yukon Kuskokwim basins. We have pockets of IFR along the west arm of the Alaska Range, Windy Pass down to Lake Clark and Merrill passes, a few areas of IFR along Prince William Sound, eastern Kenai. Broad area of IFR conditions, lower Bering, central western Aleutians. So as we get into Monday morning, here's still that moisture crossing the interior all the way up through the North Slope Brooks Range. There could even be some wet snow mixing in the colder air on the backside of a front and of this system as the rain advances eastward. So again, lower ceilings visibility, rain most areas, though again, up through the Brooks Range, that could be in the form of snow. And we have a scattering of IFR conditions in parts of the Panhandle Monday morning back through the northern Gulf Coast into the eastern Kenai. Widespread IFR conditions, St. Matthew, St. Paul, southwestward through the central and western Aleutians. And as we go into Monday, there's going to be a stronger low cut right across the central Aleutians with wind and rain. The system will have gale force to even storm force gusts. Central pressure dropping down to just above 980 millibars, and that feature is going to be heading northeastward during the week and then coming up into the western Gulf for the midweek period. So that's going to be the next piece of action coming in. The remnants of the system working east, still some IFR conditions, eastern North Slope, central eastern Brooks Range, even along the middle upper Yukon Valley, and then along areas, especially south slopes of the Alaska Range, Talkeetna Mountains, Wrangell, St. Elias Mountains, back in through the northern Panhandle Monday afternoon. You'll encounter some IFR conditions. So past conditions for Sunday, Anativik Pass, IFR conditions expected to hold there. Same thing, Adigan Pass, and by the time we get into Monday morning, there may be enough colder air coming in from the west. There could be some wet snow mixing in or even changing over at some point. Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR conditions expected there, mainly because of the upslope flow along those southeastward facing slopes. Same thing, Rainy Pass, IFR conditions, lower ceilings, visibility, and areas of rain. Windy Pass, IFR for Sunday. As we get east, Isabel Pass may start out IFR, breezy conditions through Isabel Pass too. MVFR conditions there by midday. And then further south and east, Mentasta Pass, generally MVFR to start in the morning, becoming VFR. And further south, Tanita Pass should generally see MVFR conditions during the day on Sunday. Portage Pass, kind of a split. Generally IFR conditions along the entrance and out into Prince William Sound for Sunday. MVFR conditions mid-pass back out toward the west entrance. And then Chilkoot and White may start out with some IFR conditions there in the morning, giving way to VFR later morning and into the early afternoon. So looking at the freezing levels aloft, we have high freezing levels thanks to that what's left of the ridge. The ridge is going to begin to break down, allowing for frontal system with some rain showers and areas of rain to advance eastward Sunday into Monday, eventually into northeastern Gulf Coast and Panhandle, especially northern areas of the Panhandle. But freezing levels aloft are over 12,000 feet over southeast Alaska and near 14,000 feet in the North Pacific just south of Haida Gwaii. Back to the west, we have a low pressure in this region. Freezing levels aloft are below 6,000 feet, and then we have yet another low way out here to the south and west, southwest of the Aleutians. It's going to make a beeline toward the central Aleutians as we get into Monday. Looking at that initial push of moisture coming in from this weekend, Frontal system low working its way northeastward, so we have a broad area of moderate icing possible within these thicker clouds, the ones that are producing predominantly rain. You get above 10,000 feet and you're going to encounter some moderate icing. A little higher freezing levels south and east, as I showed you earlier, and then behind me we have an area out here toward the western and central Aleutians above 12,000 feet. That's the early push of that moisture, rain and wind coming in from the next low. That's actually the remnants of a tropical system that'll be coming up here into the central Aleutians Monday and into Monday night. Looking at the winds aloft, southwest winds over the southeast mainland Alcan border, around 80-85 knots. And then out here, we have a little bit of weak ridging with a wind max of around 100 knots over the lower Alaska Peninsula, far eastern Aleutians. At 9,000 feet, we have in the mid-levels, 700 millibars, there's a trough associated with the front and surface low that's pushing through the western interior. Ahead of it, some breezier conditions. That's why we have these wind advisories up in the Alaska range. You get up at that elevation along the ridge lines, winds 40, 50 plus knots in some areas, and out into the western Gulf, and then back here across the Alaska Peninsula. You can see the hints of this stronger low circulation in the mid-levels coming up from the southwest, south there of the central Aleutians, 60 to 75 knot winds. And then on Sunday, looking at 3,000 feet, we have this front area low pressure working its way northeastward. Right out ahead of it, just west of the Alaska range, southerly flow, 40 knots there, middle upper Kuskokwim Valley. And then on the backside, around the front, northwest winds 30 to 35 knots. And then you can see the stronger core of winds around that low, just south-southwest of the central Aleutians, winds of 40 to as high as 60 knots, that counterclockwise spiral. So the greatest threat for moderate turbulence on Sunday with some low-level wind shear will be out through this region of the southwest mainland and interior, inland from Kuskokwim and Bristol Bays and along and west of the Alaska range. We also have some pockets of moderate turbulence, maybe around Anchor Point down toward east side of Kodiak Island along the Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula, and then trailing out the Aleutians. Expect some areas of moderate turbulence, surface to 3,000 or 4,000 feet on Sunday.